You ever hear a story so crazy, so unbelievable, that it sounds like something straight out of a movie? Well, this one right here, it'll make you laugh, shake your head, and maybe even cheer at the ending. Before we dive in, drop a comment with the country you're watching from. Let's see how far this story travels. Globe showing Europe, Africa. It was a crisp autumn morning in a quiet rural town. The kind of morning where the mist lingers low over the fields, and the golden light filters through trees just beginning to shed their leaves. On the edge of town sat a weathered red barn, older than most of the homes around it. That barn wasn't just wood and nails, it held generations of memories. Inside, the smell of hay mixed with fresh earth. Old tools hung neatly on the walls. And right outside, Samuel, an older farmer with a strong back and tired eyes, was repairing a broken fence. He wiped his hands on his overalls and glanced at his barn with quiet pride. But across the road, something else was stirring. The neighborhood HOA, a group of sharply dressed board members with clipboards and an oversized sense of authority, had been holding meetings for weeks. They didn't like Samuel's barn. To them, it was an eyesore. Never mind that it had stood there for 70 years, long before their fancy resort-style homes and the gleaming $5 million man-made lake were ever built. One morning, Samuel heard a commotion outside. Engines. Voices. Laughter. He walked out to see heavy machinery parked in his yard. Bulldozers. Trucks. And men in reflective vests walking toward his barn. At the front of it all was Mr. Carver, the HOA president, sunglasses on even though the sun was barely up. "Morning, Sam," Carver said with a grin that didn't reach his eyes. "We voted. That barn's coming down. It doesn't fit our community image." Samuel froze. "This barn belonged to my father, and his father before him. You can't just..." But before he could finish, the sound of crunching would split the air. One of the machines rammed into the barn's side, and with each strike, Samuel's chest tightened. The walls buckled, beams snapped, and within an hour, generations of history lay in a pile of broken boards and dust. Samuel stood silent, fists clenched, heartbreaking. The HOA board walked away without a care, heading back to their pristine resort homes. That night, Samuel sat on his porch in silence. He didn't cry. He didn't yell. He just stared at the twinkling lights reflecting off the big artificial lake the HOA loved so much. And that's when his eyes narrowed, because he remembered something almost no one else did. Years ago, before the resort was even built, Samuel had worked construction on that very lake. He knew how it was made. He knew where the pipes were buried. And most importantly, he knew about the single steel valve tucked away behind some brush at the far end of the property. The valve that controlled the entire water system. Days passed. The HOA bragged about their improvements, while Samuel stayed quiet. He let them enjoy their pool parties, their boat rides, their barbecues by the water. But when the night came, cloudy, moonless, perfectly still, Samuel slipped on his boots and made his way across the field. The only sounds were crickets and the crunch of his steps on damp grass. He moved past the trees until he reached the hidden spot, overgrown with weeds. And there it was, the valve. Rusted. Forgotten. But still working. Samuel crouched down, his hand on the cold metal. He took a deep breath, thinking of his barn, his family's legacy, the arrogance of people who thought they could erase history. Then, with one steady twist. Clank. At first, nothing happened. Just the quiet night. But then came the faint rush of water. A hiss. A roar. Within minutes, the lake began to drop. Ripples pulled toward the outlet as water funneled away like someone pulling the plug from a giant bathtub. By morning, the once sparkling lake was nothing but a muddy pit. Boats sat crooked in the muck. Docks hung useless in the air. The HOA's $5 million pride and joy, gone. Panic swept through the community. People shouted, pointed, and demanded answers. Carver stormed through the crowd, red-faced, waving his arms. "This is sabotage," he yelled. "Who would do this? But Samuel just stood at the edge of the mess, arms folded. He didn't say a word. He didn't need to. Neighbors glanced at him, some hiding smiles, others whispering. And though nobody proved anything, deep down, everyone knew. The man they thought was just an old farmer had reminded them all of one thing: respect the land and respect the people who came before you. As weeks went by, the HOA scrambled to fix the disaster. Costs skyrocketed. Lawyers argued. Homeowners demanded refunds. And Samuel? He planted a new barn. Stronger. Better. Built with the help of neighbors who finally realized what the old man meant to their town. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky in shades of orange and purple, Samuel leaned against the fresh wooden beams. A young neighbor walked up and said softly, "They'll think twice before crossing you again." Samuel just chuckled. "Wasn't about me," he said. "It was about remembering what matters." And with that, he walked inside his barn, his legacy standing tall once again. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and share it with someone who loves a good twist of justice.